Hey guys, so this week we're going to be talking about thermal energy or heat energy and the heat transfer that occurs. So there's going to be three different types of heat transfer. One is conduction, the next one's convection, and the last one is radiation. So I'm going to go through those and you guys will have assignments on those this week. So heat transfer will happen whenever there is a difference in temperature. So energy as heat flow always moves from a higher temperature to a lower temperature. You guys also know this is the same for air pressure. It goes from high to low. So heat will flow as long as one temperature is higher than another. So when heat is transferred, thermal energy always moves from warmer to cooler objects. Heat never flows from a cooler object to a warmer object. This process of heat transfer can occur in three ways, and these three ways are the ways I was talking about: conduction, radiation, or convection. So first, we're going to look at conduction. Conduction is a transfer of heat by direct contact. It's called conduction. So when you lay a stove or a pan or pot on the stove, and that fire is in direct contact with that pot is going to become hot. So conduction occurs when the molecules in a material collide with neighboring molecules. So when you have this pot on the stove and you leave it on, this handle will become hot because of conduction, because it's in direct contact with the fire or the thermal energy. So imagine holding an ice cube in your hand. The faster moving molecules in your warm hand bump against the slower moving molecules in the cold ice. The heat energy flows from your warmer hand to the colder ice, and the slow moving molecules in the ice become faster, and this will cause the ice to melt. So the molecules are closer together and they are slow moving, but when that ice starts to heat up from the thermal energy in your hand, those molecules start to spread out and become much faster moving. So conduction usually occurs most easily in solids and liquids where atoms and molecules are close together. Then atoms and molecules need to move only a short distance before they bump into one another and transfer energy. So the closer they are together, the faster the energy is transferred. Next is radiation. So radiation is heat transfer by radiation occurs when energy is transferred by electromagnetic waves. Objects and substances are not touching in order for radiation to occur. So if you imagine you are standing outside, it's a nice sunny day in summer, and you can feel the heat from the sun. You are not directly touching the sun, but you can still feel the heat from the sun, and that is through transfer of radiation from those energy is transferred by electromagnetic waves. So the sun and fire are major sources of radiation. However, all objects emit some amount of electromagnetic radiation. So if we look up here at the fire, if you're sitting next to a fire, you're not directly in contact with that fire, but you can still feel the thermal energy coming off of it. And on the bottom here, it says that all objects emit some amount of electromagnetic radiation. So if you are in a really crowded room, when everyone first gets in there, it might be cold, but from body heat and the transfer of that electromagnetic radiation, the room will actually start to warm up. The warmth you feel when you sit next to a fireplace is due to heat transferred by radiation from the fire to the skin. So you're not in direct contact, but you still can feel the heat. Our last one is convection. So in a gas or liquid, molecules can move much more easily than they can in a solid. Molecules can travel from one place to another and carry their energy along with them. This type of heat is called convection. Thermal energy is transferred to the water molecules at the bottom of the pot from the stove. So these water molecules move faster and further apart as their thermal energy increases or as they get hotter or warmer. So you can see that the water is being heated from the bottom of the stove, that hot water rises because it's less dense, and then it's sort of like a current, a convection current, and the water cools, becomes more dense and sinks, and it's going around and around. And this happens because these water molecules move faster and further apart as those thermal energy increases. So because the molecules are further apart in the warm water, this water is less dense than the cold water. As a result, the warm water rises and is replaced at the bottom of the pot by cooler water. The cooler water is heated, rises, and the cycle is repeated until all the water in the pot is at the same temperature. Here is another example. You have a heater over here and a window over here that looks probably cracked open. So that colder air comes in, it gets heated up by this heater. That heater heats it up, and then that warm air rises because it's less dense and comes back over here. So this cycle will repeat. If this window is closed, this cycle will repeat until the air in the room is all at the same temperature. Here you have another example of all three examples of heat transfer. So you have radiation. If you're standing next to the stove, you can feel that heat coming off the stove eye. And you see within the water that's boiling, you can see the convection happening. The warm water rises and then the cooler water goes down, and it has a convection current until all the water is at the same temperature. And then you have conduction, which is this pot is being heated up, and you can feel it on the handle from direct contact. Here's another little example of more dense and less dense liquids. There's also natural convection. So natural convection occurs on Earth when a warmer, less dense fluid is pushed away by a cooler, denser fluid. And we talked a little bit about this when we're talking about weather, how the warm air is heated and rises, and the warm air cooling and descending, and then that cool air moving over water and towards the land. All right, that's all I have for you guys today. This week you're going to have reading passages about conduction, convection, and radiation. You'll need to read those passages and answer those questions. You'll also have task cards, and it's really important that you guys study your vocabulary, because we will have a vocabulary quiz on Friday. And then on Wednesday, I included a Quizlet practice where you can go and they will give you they'll give you an example of some sort of heat transfer, and you have to figure out if it's conduction, convection, or radiation. This will be really good practice for your test on heat transfer that will be in the next couple weeks. Okay, thank you.